sometimes people say to me, if you could do the business again, but start with, I don't know, X amount of thousands of pounds, how do you think you'd do? And I'm like, I really feel like not having made me go out there, put myself in those uncomfortable positions of having to speak to people. I really think that the not having and some of the not so nice experiences actually propelled me to do better. So don't think that you have to come from a family or have lots of funds in order to succeed.
So excited to be back again with another podcast. And today I have a dear friend of mine. I can call her a friend because I've known her for so long. And this has really been something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. So Jemma, thank you so much for coming on to Lead to Excel podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join the podcast.
Thanks so much. So Jemma and I live in the same part of the UK, which is in Kent, which is the most beautiful part of the UK, I must say. So Jemma, could you just introduce yourself briefly and tell us who you are and just a bit, because we are going to have an interesting conversation today.
Yes, my name is Jemma Fairclough-Haynes. I am an entrepreneur. My main business is Orchard Employment Law. We provide employment law and HR services to business. We're based here in Kent, but we serve businesses nationally and even globally. We have a few clients abroad as well. I've been growing that business for 8.5 years, nearly 9 years this year. And amongst other things, my personal life, I'm a gospel singer, I am a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a friend. So keep myself busy.
You do, you really do. Thanks so much for that. So, Jemma, I know you said you're an employment lawyer, you're a gospel singer, and it's interesting that you've got clients within the UK and out, which I'd love to touch on actually quite a bit. But let's go back a bit to young Jemma. So tell us a bit about you, about your background, and because I want us to kind of understand how you got into law. So tell us about your childhood, about young Jemma.
Yes, my name is Jemma Fairclough-Haynes. I am an entrepreneur. My main business is Orchard Employment Law. We provide employment law and HR services to business. We're based here in Kent, but we serve businesses nationally and even globally. We have a few clients abroad as well. I've been growing that business for 8.5 years, nearly 9 years this year. And amongst other things, my personal life, I'm a gospel singer, I am a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a friend. So keep myself busy.
You do, you really do. Thanks so much for that. So, Jemma, I know you said you're an employment lawyer, you're a gospel singer, and it's interesting that you've got clients within the UK and out, which I'd love to touch on actually quite a bit. But let's go back a bit to young Jemma. So tell us a bit about you, about your background, and because I want us to kind of understand how you got into law. So tell us about your childhood, about young Jemma.
Yeah, so as a child, I was inherently shy. In fact, I still tell people that I'm a shy person. What I should have mentioned as well when I was introducing myself is that I'm also a public speaker. And so because I'm a public speaker and because I sing, sometimes people think there's just no way you can be shy, but I am inherently shy, and I was like that as a child. Very much a watcher, would watch what's going on, but if you put me on a stage, I'd do what I needed to do. I found academics fairly easy, I would say. Not everybody can say that, but I found academics fairly easy. And I used to use school as it was the thing that I could control and lean into. So I really enjoyed going to school. I grew up in the Midlands, so although I live in the Garden of England now, in Kent, I usually say sunny Kent, although this time of the year it's not very sunny. I grew up in the Midlands, which was wonderful in lots of respects, a very multicultural society. I'm of Jamaican heritage, so it was very buoyant in terms of culture. My friends were from very diverse backgrounds, and I really enjoyed being part of that cacophony of a mixture of people and growing up. That was quite nice. And I think that helped in being able to explain things to people, even now. So, I talk to people from all walks of life. And I think those early years of being able to speak to people from different cultures or whose parents didn't speak English as a first language has helped me in my latter years. And I have and had a huge extended family. When they say it takes a village, more like a city with us, but I have and have a huge extended family whom I spent lots of time with. We're dotted around, but primarily in the Midlands. And so, I spent lots of time with my grandparents, my cousins. My cousins are like siblings, my aunts, my uncles. I'm the oldest child. And I guess, again, even being the oldest child, that has had some influence on maybe the way I think about things or the way I behave.
Mm. Thanks so much for that, Gemma. You said something that I want to pick up on. You said education was something you found easy, and
Mm,
it's something you probably, you mentioned the word you had control over. What do you
mm.
mean by that?
So my parents split up when I was quite young, and there was lots of moving around as a young child. But I felt like going to school was something that was mine and I could control. So that was an environment where I felt, entirely secure. I could own that. I loved to read. I say one of those children. I don't know how many of those children there are. I was telling someone the other day, but I used to read the dictionary for fun. I love
Wow.
language, so I would sit by the dictionaries and I would read those in my quiet time at school. So I lent into it, and I had the most amazing head teacher in primary school, Mrs. Pope. She was a lady from Barbados, which again was really unheard of those times, because she was a female head teacher, which was very unheard of, and she was a black head teacher, which was very unheard of. And she just loved me for some reason, and she would put me forward for everything. So even age 6, I remember narrating the school play, and apparently that hadn't been done before by a 6-year-old. The whole school play, narrating it from start to finish, from memory. So I just learned the script and narrated it, and it was really under her direction of, little Gemma, you can do this. That gave me some of the encouragement to be able to do that.
Oh, that is amazing. I think one of the things you said there, the head teacher, when you started talking about her, I just smiled because the impact that teachers have on children is
Mm.
just phenomenal. People don't realize it. You even remembered her name, you're talking about her, and
Yeah,
you could see your face even beam when you started mentioning her.
yeah.
But you see, I love the way she gave you, she believed in you,
Mm,
and that probably propelled you even more. That's awesome. So Gemma, in terms of talking about this whole aspect of control, I find it fascinating because there was a bit of chaos from what you're describing outside, in terms of home life and all that, but you found an area that you had control and you really went for it. And that's so powerful in terms of, even as adults, what we can do. A lot of times people focus on what they have no control over.
mm,
And when you do that, you keep going down that rabbit hole because you
mm.
don't have control. But I love the way you focused on what you had control over. And I want to find out a bit more. How did you manage to even do this? Or what kind of gave
Yeah.
you the,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know, to be honest with you, because I was so young. We're talking under the age of 7 that I did this. I was so young, and I don't think anyone said to me, take ownership of the things you can control. But I just did. I had the confidence of given to me by my mom and my head teacher and the teachers, and so I just lent in. Really, I think I thrived on praise, and they were very complimentary, the teachers and the head teacher, and some of my family. And so I lent into that praise and thought, well, I can do more of this, really.
Yeah, that's, I love the fact that you said that
Mm.
the praise made a difference. And
Yeah.
it's so powerful because when you praise, it's that dopamine, isn't it?
Mm.
You want more, you want to do more. How did your mom actually help? I know we've talked about your
Yeah.
head teacher, but what impact do you feel your
So
mom
my mom
had
has
at that
always
time?
been overly, I say overly, very encouraging. Anything that she says I can, I said I wanted to do, she would say, yes, you can do it. Even
Yeah.
when I would know deep down, she probably didn't think that. She would say yes. If I said I wanted to be an astronaut, she'd be like, well, and you can absolutely do that.
Wow.
Even when I set up the business, I remember going to her and saying, Mom, I'm giving, I'm giving up my job and I'm starting a business. And she said yes. Her face said no, but her mouth said yes. The only thing she said to me is, "Are you sure?" And then I said yes, and she said, "Okay, I'll support you." And I think having that belief helped to give me belief in myself.
Yeah,
But
that's so
I want to be
powerful.
transparent about that. I had one parent who was incredibly supportive and one who wasn't.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and I know that for some people, they would adopt the more negative and be like, well, this person says I can't, and so I won't. But I thrived on praise, and so I lent into the praise. And they were both equally powerful in terms of their voice. It's just the
Yeah.
voice that I chose to listen to.
Wow. Wow. That is something. I love the fact that you really made that point because a lot of times we forget that there's possibly a negative voice coming, which could be from anywhere. It could be from friends, it could be from society, could be from bosses, anywhere. But I love the fact that you brought that up. So two parents, but one was positive and the other was the opposite. But
Mm,
you chose to lean into the positive, and it's that affirmation, the praise. Thank
mm.
you so much for sharing that. So, how did you went to school and, what were you thinking of becoming at that time? And how did we end up in law?
Yeah. So
And
as
why law?
it's quite interesting because as a child, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know how. Apparently, there was a program, something at the Old Bailey. My mom said I always used to look and say, "Mom, I'm going to be. I want to do that. I want to be like that." Um, although inherently shy, have got really strong sense of justice. I've always had that strong sense of justice. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. you know.
Well,
But I've always had a strong sense of advocacy for
yeah,
others. Um, and I'm very argumentative, and I love the detail. And I have a good memory, so that has helped. So I
yeah,
always knew I either wanted to be a lawyer or a singer, because I usually say music is my first love. I knew I loved singing from a very early age. And I either wanted to be a lawyer or a singer. And honestly, I could have gone down either route. Age 14, we'd moved to Kent by then. I was singing in social clubs. I had someone approach me and offer to be my manager. I was told that, I could go to Sylvia Young's. My mum, being from an immigrant background, was not on board with that.
yeah, yeah. No surprise there.
She was like, I will drive you. Well, not personally drive you because she doesn't drive, but she's like, I will take you to these social clubs and I will, you want to sing at weddings and whatever, fine. But your education is the key, and that's what's paramount. That's something you can do on the side or afterwards. And so I then thought, well, if I can't do that one thing I love, I'll do the other thing that I love, which
Mm,
um, was finding out about the law. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. And again, to be totally transparent, most of my teachers were on board. Most of them said, yeah, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. I did have one teacher in the Midlands, surprisingly, which is much more of a diverse place than Kent was when I was growing up. And the
mm.
teacher said, you won't be able to do it. You can't afford it. I think you should think of something else. The teacher didn't know anything about me. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, he was very negative. He was like, think of something,
That's the
lower your
bias.
gaze. Actually, what he actually said, lower your gaze. I think you should think of something else.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and I went home and I remember telling my mom about that. The next day she was in school.
Yeah. Good. Good
The very
mom.
next day, she was like,
Good
how dare
mom.
you? Um, But
Yeah.
again, I chose not to listen to that one
Yes.
teacher and lent into the teachers that said I could do it. So it was a very straightforward journey, because I knew what I wanted to do. And if you know what you want to do, it's much easier to get there.
Mhm. A lot. I think the fact that you were so, I think you've been very focused on what you want and when you want it, and making sure it's almost like you kind of paved the way for yourself that this is something I can control. I'm going down this path.
Mm,
And I want to touch on the fact that you said you were inherently shy
mm,
or quiet as a young girl. And it just shows that you can do anything you want,
mm,
in spite of, the way you are, because like you said, you're a public speaker. How, and I want to kind of understand now. I'm going to come a bit to the law later, but I want to understand how you being really shy has come out in things like public speaking, maybe when you were
mm,
starting to get into public speaking, or when
mm.
you went into law and had to maybe go to court or something, or even talk to clients. How has that come out, and how have you been able to manage it? Maybe you're a budding leader seeking growth and excellence, or just wondering the best way to raise children who are growing up in this day and age. Introducing the Mindsight Women's Network, crafted specially for Christian women. We're going to combine the teachings of the Bible with scientific revelations to provide you with tools to overcome fear, to take that bold step, to step out of your boat and walk towards your God-given destiny. Together we will empower each other. Together we will grow exponentially, and together we will pave the way for more female leaders to shine in their excellence. Join us today and be a part of a community determined to rise and shine. Mindsight Women's Network, where scripture and science come together to uplift, empower, and inspire.
Although being inherently shy, I've always been a performer. So, and I've always been into music. So I started playing recorder at age 4, violin, saxophone. I sang, very much would be a performer. But when I was doing those things, it's like I was somebody else. So it was quite easy to go on stage and to sing a song, either as a solo or part of a group, or to play a tune on the saxophone or a melody on the violin, and then step off the stage. That's always been okay for me to do, and I've done it from such a young age. We had in the Midlands an organisation which would help children from African and Caribbean descent in terms of their schoolwork on a Saturday, like Saturday school. And they also would do things like put on shows and talk about cultural things. And I went to that as well. And we were always performing. It was just like going to school. It was no different. We were just always performing. So again, that led itself naturally. And then when I started going to church and they asked me to join the praise and worship team as a backing singer, I just did that because it was another element of performing. When they asked me to be lead, that was a different matter. I was like, oh my goodness, no, there's just no way I can do that. But once I start singing, I just focus on the thing that I'm enjoying. And the same with once I start speaking, whether that's, whether I'm advocating for a client or whether I'm public speaking, I just focus on the thing that I'm enjoying, which is the talking, the delivering the information. It's like, helping someone. What I don't like is when I come off the stage. That's the thing and even now, after so many years, I'm fine. I'll speak to 4,000 people. It's fine. That doesn't bother me. But sometimes I just want to be unseen when I come down and it's, you feel people gravitating towards you. So, I manage it, I overcome it. I don't think anyone would ever notice that from the outside in. But again, being totally transparent, that bit for me is the fear factor, rather than the speaking to a sea of people.
Yeah, that's really great. And I love the fact that you mentioned this, because I think even people listening, this is so important. Because what you do is, especially when you mention that when you focus on the subject at hand, you focus on what you're speaking about, or you focus on the client, or it's that focus is taking the focus away from, or focusing on the actual matter at hand instead of focusing on the fear. Because a lot of times, what really cripples people is when you focus on the fear, things that can go wrong. But almost is that your ability to get into a role that really helps. And I think it's just something that is so powerful that everyone that is listening should really practice, because it takes you away from you in a
Yeah.
sense, and diverts or distracts your brain or focuses your brain on the thing that you're comfortable with or the thing that you enjoy, and then the fear then has to go away. But you're right, though, when you then come off, it's
It comes
Jemma
back.
back. Yeah.
It just comes
It's
back.
then Jemma there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally identify with it because I'm quite similar, very quiet as a young girl, very shy, actually. But you see, I think for me, the reason I asked you was because I sang in the choir, but my voice, I was always in the middle so that my voice doesn't come out, because I don't have a singing voice at all. But I just enjoy singing. But I think for me, when I then went into teaching, and I had to do a 5-minute presentation, I think that was one of the first times that I would say that it was very public in front of people I did not know. Oh my God, Jem, I nearly fell over. My
Yeah.
knees were shaking, and it was horrible. But I pushed myself to continue. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did, because that actually helped me later, even when I got into speaking, it
I
really
mean,
helped. Yeah,
absolutely. And
go
I think, and even as a mother, I encourage my daughter as well, is inherently shy. People don't believe that she's very good at, putting on that front, but she is also inherently shy. But I gently put her into situations where she'll have to speak, even if it's one-on-one, because I think that's life. If you're going to have interviews, if you are going to have to speak to a doctor about a particular concern, it's something that you need to help you. Even if you're not a public speaker, it's just something that you need. And I think the earlier you can start it, the better. That really is what has helped me, because I started that so early.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And I love the way you said you do that with your daughter. And I hope we have time to talk about how you've nurtured her into even getting into business at such a young age. And I think it's just incredible, because you see, I think that having that skill as a young child, even for you, you can see it playing out as an adult, setting up your business. When you then go to speak to clients, you can then get into that role and do what you need to do, as opposed to going and forgetting everything you were meant to be saying. So no, that's great. So Jemma, why law? Why employment law?
Yeah, I
Because
had no interest in employment law. you know,
why?
um, when I got a bit older and started to think even more about the law, watching things for myself, I was a fan of a show called Ally McBeal, which
Okay,
was
yeah, yeah.
quite a ditzy young lady, but she looked fabulous, and I like fabulosity, if that's even a word. I like my shoes,
We'll
and
take it.
I love that. And I think what I liked about her was she was so feminine and delicate, but yet this powerhouse lawyer, whereas everything else I'd seen, if people were powerhouse lawyers, they didn't have that femininity and that delicateness about them. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm as delicate as Annie, but I like to think I've still got some of that feminine energy going on there. And so, I always wanted to be like her, and I wanted to do corporate law, and I saw myself working in the city, and I saw myself, wearing a suit, because that is all I had ever seen. Um, but it's very difficult to get into the corporate law and to do it well. To be honest with you, law's like a funnel. There are thousands of students, and then only so many get this far, and then only so many get this far. It's very difficult. So one of the jobs that I got when I was at the bar part-time, was working for the insolvency service. Before that, I was a learning mentor at school, and a friend of mine said, "There's a job at the insolvency service. I think you'd be really good." And I said, "Okay, I don't really know anything about it, but makes sense. I'll have a look into it." They wanted someone with a law degree, and it was good. It was interesting. I got to go through details of bankruptcy, and again, I am inherently shy, but I'm also inherently nosy. And being able
That
to
helps.
look through details, I thought, "Oh, this is interesting." And my boss at the time had seen something in me, and within a few months, he was like, I think you should do further investigation. So what the further investigators do is they look at companies where, people are doing things that they shouldn't. So phoenixing, resetting up companies and not paying their debts, or just behaving incredibly badly, which leads to businesses collapsing. And I did that for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. I became pregnant with my daughter. My husband and I had planned for me to be pregnant, and so I told my boss, and I had enough money to survive until I knew I was going to go on maternity. We'd also recently bought a house, and so everything seemed like the right time. Well, within a couple of weeks of announcing that I was pregnant, I was then told I'm going to be made redundant, and yeah, that was quite horrific, because I hadn't planned. We never had savings. Money is something that I'm really still just learning about, and so it just came at the wrong time. And whilst I was looking for another job, I came across a job as an employment law paralegal with a sole practitioner. I went for the job, and she said to me, I don't think I can afford you. I promised her, no, you can. Look, I promise. I just want a job. I'll stay. She was totally right, of course. She knew that the moment that something better came along, I probably would have gone for it. And she said, well, why are you leaving? I thought, well, lady, I don't eat pies. This is a belly. This is a baby, I said, I'm pregnant. And she says, oh, well, that's not right. Why don't you, look at this and this and consider pursuing your employer? And I looked at it and just didn't really do anything with it. I thought, I haven't got time for this. My main focus really is trying to get another job. And at the same time, I became quite unwell with pregnancy. I had preeclampsia, which resulted in my daughter being born almost 2 months early. I was in hospital for a month before that. So it wasn't my focus, but it had just sown the seed, really, of employment law. A little bit interesting. I think, if there is anybody who is considering a legal career and you are younger, some of the things that you need in everyday life, like property, land law, and employment law, seem boring. Being honest with you, I found it boring, but actually you need it in everyday life. And when you start to use these things, they become interesting, So I had left that job where I was made redundant, and I stayed at home with baby for a while. And then my mum actually said to me, oh, I've seen this job. It's for employment lawyer, and it's working from home. And this is 2010. So this is before working from home was a thing. Yeah. The company's based in Manchester. I think you should go for it. And I looked, I was like, this belief in me has gone ridiculous now. I don't know anything about employment law. This unwavering belief is just ridiculous.
That's so cool, though. I love that.
Yeah. And she says, oh, don't be silly, you can do it. Dress up and go. So I did.
We need that. Everyone needs a Jemma's mom in their life.
I know, but sometimes I'm like, come on. I mean, this is not the same thing. This is not what I've studied. So I distinctly remember I put on these red patent shoes, and I had on a dark suit. And I remember saying to my husband, you know what, if nothing else, they're going to remember the lady had on red shoes, because I know everyone else will just dress, according to the brief.
Yeah, with the black shoes. Because it's law.
I was like, no, they're going to remember the lady with the red shoes. And I went into the interview with a panel of two, and the woman was, she was smiling at me. I think she liked my shoes more than anything. And the guy, he just looked so perplexed. He was like, what are you doing here? He's like, you're the least qualified. You've got no experience. Do you even know what an ET1 is? An ET1's a claim form. And I was like, no, but I'm teachable. And he literally just sat back and went, huh. So, a couple of weeks later, I got the call saying, Jemma, I don't know what you were doing there. And I'm thinking, this is going to be, you didn't get the job. He goes, but you've got fire in your belly. We just like that you're tenacious and you're teachable. He said, well, obviously we can't offer you the salary that was on the ad, but we'll take you on as a trainee. And so that's what I did. I started as a trainee, and developed a love for it, to be fair. I really enjoy what I do.
That's fantastic. A lot of lessons there actually,
Mm,
because it's we hear this all the time, and I see it in my job where a lot of times people rule themselves out. In fact, I was talking to someone recently, and about it, going for a job, and
mm,
she said, "See, I'm being realistic. I won't get it, so
mm,
there's no point." And that just automatically she's ruled herself out. I love the fact that you are not qualified, you
mm,
you didn't know anything about it, but you
yeah,
went there with that belief
mm,
that, you know what, I will go, but at least if nothing else, they will remember me.
yeah,
And that takes the pressure away automatically.
mm,
And the fact that you even said, see, I'm teachable,
mm,
it's that confidence.
mm,
And the confidence comes when you don't put the pressure of, oh, what if I don't get it? What if this? What if this? It's just going, you know what? I'll do my best. I'll
mm.
just be me. And that just I'd say it relaxes your brain. Then your conscious brain can kick in and do its thing, which is just being free, just being normal. And
Mm.
that's when nuggets or real powerful things come out, because telling someone that you're teachable when you really had no clue about the role,
No, he was just like, yeah.
you know, oh, that's really great. So you went into this. How long were you in that role for?
Oh, about 4 years, not very long, about 4 years. But I did really well within that 4 years.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, they put me up to the salary that I applied
Oh, wow.
for.
6 months.
Yeah, I had
That's
quite a few. I had a
fantastic.
good mentor though, again, being totally transparent, they assigned me a mentor who was really good. Um, I knew that
Was your mentor in the company?
yes, but
Okay.
again, this is from working from home before working from home was a thing. We didn't even
Wow.
do Zoom. I don't even think Zoom was a thing, or if it was, we didn't know about it. We would do telephone calls, and
Yeah.
sometimes he would meet me in London for a coffee, and I'd take my file with him, and we'd talk about things like my cases, or sometimes he'd come along to my cases with me. But because I was interested and I'm an avid reader and learner, that's what I did. I learned in, I read and I learned,
Yeah.
and just really enjoyed it. I did make mistakes along the way, of course. I remember
Which is
losing my
normal.
first case and probably shouldn't have lost it. The case was good enough to win, but I wasn't good enough at that stage to win
Yeah.
it for them. But
What
I
impact did that have on you?
losing
Yes.
I don't like to lose. So
Yeah.
I would like, oh, well, I just have to work harder next time. And that's why I would look at every detail. The next time I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Well, now I'm going to look into every detail. And that's really where I think I come into my own in my role is I love the loopholes. I love,
Mm.
there's but did you know that I love those things. So yeah, it's all in the detail.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks so
Mhm.
much, Gemma. That's so, I asked you that question because a lot of times when, that could easily put somebody off. The fact that you came in on the back foot, you don't really know much, and then you've done a case which should have won, and then you didn't win, and it starts playing on your mind, and then it just hinders progress. But what you said is, I don't like losing. So now I'm going to make sure that I
Yeah.
do everything I can, cross all the T's, learn as much as I can,
Mm.
and it's learning from the experience as opposed to the experience crippling you. So yeah, thanks so much for that. So
Mm.
how did you then navigate into opening your own business?
Because that was never on the cards, because that's risk. Come from quite a risk averse
Exactly.
circle of people, um, and um, yeah, that was never on the cards. But after being there a little while, I was at risk of redundancy, and my boss, the same one who hired me for my tenacity, he said, "Oh,
Mm.
Jem, I'm going to meet you for lunch." I said, "All right then," and he says, "We're making redundancies." He's from Liverpool, hence my accent, So we're making redundancies. I said, "Oh." Now I remember I'd been made redundant before
Yeah.
when I had my daughter, got
Uh,
into awful debt. Uh, you know, I wasn't able to find another job actually one for the rest of the duration of my pregnancy, and then I became ill, and it just set us back. It took us a good few years to catch back up, and
mm,
I think that fear just sent me into, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. He says, "You're not going to be made redundant." No, I said, "Okay." He says, "But because this is what we do. I've got to send you a letter to say you're at risk."
mm,
So I says, "Oh." Okay. Now, I had won a case on a technicality against a solicitor in Kent, and he had said, add me, he really liked it. You know, people think you're at each other, you're not, you're good fun, you become friends. So as we left the courtroom, he was like, good job, you know, you on LinkedIn? I just said yes, I didn't know LinkedIn. I said, yeah. He said, add me on LinkedIn.
Serious?
He said, add me on LinkedIn. I said, okay. So I went home, set up a LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
Had no picture. The LinkedIn account did me more mischief than good, because what would happen people would be looking at my, you know, as I was an employee, but people would go look me up and go, oh, my brief's rubbish. She doesn't have any experience or anything, because I haven't filled out the LinkedIn. So in
Yeah.
some ways, it probably would have been better not to be on there, but okay. So I just connected with him, and I think I had two connections, him and one other person. So when I heard that I was at risk of redundancy, I contacted him. I sent him a message. I said, oh, hi, don't know if you remember me. I beat you. Have you got any jobs going? And he said, I do remember you, because that was a good one. That was. I don't have any jobs going, but I could offer you a platform to start off on your own if you like. And I thought, no, thank you. I don't like. I know I need security. We are a two-salaried household. This is very important to me. Thanks, but no thanks. You know, I was very polite about it. But I said thank you, but no thank you. And I thought I'll just wait and see what happens with this redundancy situation. And, you know, true to my boss's word, I wasn't made redundant. So I continued to work, but again, continued to become more experienced. And so what would happen is I would get cases further afield. So when I started, I know that everything's about relationships. I don't know how I know that, but I've always known that. And unlike some of the other advocates who could be quite mean to the clerk, I was the clerk's best friend. I was so nice to them. I'd be like, hi, Mike, how are you? Tell them everything about me. They know I've got a baby. They know I've got a toddler. And he would try and keep me in the locality, which would mean I could get there and back in a day, even if I had to do for 2 days. Because my contract said I could be, you know, I could go away for 2 weeks if I needed to. But because I had this good relationship, I would always stay within the vicinity. Well, once they made this, the first set of redundancies, I'd start getting calls going, Jemma, there's no one else that can do it, like with your level of experience, but you. And I would do it because, well, one, I was contracted to do so, but two, I had that relationship with the clerk to know that if he's given it to me, there's no one else. Anyway, a year later, I was at risk of redundancy again, and I got that same call. Hi, Jemma, this time a call. I'm not going to meet you, just telling you, you know, you're at risk again. He actually said, you're our star girl. Don't worry about it, but you're going to get the letter. So I thought, oh, okay, fine. I'll wait for this letter and we'll just see what happens. And I got the letter and I panicked, because that's again, but I did. I recalled how I felt when I was made redundant after I was pregnant.
Yeah,
Thought,
it comes back, doesn't
I'll have
it?
that situation again.
Yeah.
So the first lady, you remember when I was pregnant, I said I went to be a paralegal for.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a paralegal for. I found her email and emailed her and said, got some experience now. I can see your business has grown. How about you take me on? And I got an email from someone else saying, this lady sold the business. Why don't you come in for an exploratory chat? And I said, okay, I didn't know what an exploratory chat was, but I said, okay, yeah, sure, fine. So I went in, and that turns out it was an interview. But a lot of the questions were around, so how will you bring in business? And
Did you have your red shoes on?
No. I don't remember what colour shoes I would have had on, but they weren't red. So he said, well, you know, his questions were around how will you bring in business? And in my role, I'd never had to do that. I was given 25 to 30 cases and I just worked them. And I was like, I don't know. He said, well, we like our staff to be more commercially aware and bring in some of the business. He said, also, have you thought about starting on your own? What a strange thing to say. No. He said, well, why don't you? You do know we'd be in competition, right? Because this guy was in Kent as well.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, no such thing as competition. You should consider it. And I really just thought, if you don't want me, just tell me, I can take it. But sort of smiled and said, okay. He said, also, your CV is really rubbish. He said, because he asked me to send it to him, he said, if I just looked at your CV alone, I won't be talking to you. He said, but no, when I'm speaking to you, I realise there's so much more to you. And the only reason why you're not getting this job is because you haven't got that commercial awareness. He said, I'll tell you what, you haven't got the job, but I'll redo your CV for you. And he did. I thought, what a nice thing to do. He redid the CV. He sent it back to me. So if you are looking for jobs, you'll find something. This is based on the information he had gleaned from me. And what I learned from that was, and even now, I'll get someone else to do my copywriting. Say, what do you think of me? Not because I really get concerned about what people think, but I've noticed that we tend to think less of ourselves or not be able to pick out what's some skills and attributes. And he showed me that someone else could do that. So didn't get that job anyway, and thought I'll just see what happens. I wasn't made redundant. And at that time, my husband was going, do it, do it. And I was like, no. So anyway, the third time round, another year later, I got a call again. Same thing. Hi, Gemma, you're our star girl. We're making redundancies. You're not going to be made redundant. This time round, we're doing interviews, though, rather than just selecting people. So they've probably got their fingers burnt in the last two redundancies. And I said, oh, okay. And I just started to think, oh, I wonder I wonder what voluntary redundancy is. And I realised I've been holding on to the security and thought, but one day I might not be the star girl. Like, what if I just fall out of favour? And also, because they kept getting rid of people, I was then going further, and I was then becoming more experienced. I'm going to Scotland now and Northern Ireland for a week, and I've got a young family at home, and I couldn't go to, like, my daughter had a school play, and I remember her saying to me, she says, "Oh, you got your school play tomorrow?" And she said, children with no filter. She was like, "Are you actually going to come? Or are you just going to send Auntie?" And they know how to hit me there. Because I thought, well, at least you've got Auntie to come, and she loves Auntie, but it wasn't Mummy.
It wasn't Mummy.
Was it Mummy? And I was like, oh. So I just started to think about the possibility of taking voluntary redundancy, and sent an email saying, what's the voluntary? And they ignored it. So I sent it again with a read receipt. It got read. They ignored it. And then I thought, I'll just go to the interview then, and I'll ask them. Went to the interview. I was giving all the right answers. I know, because I was getting, I could tell from the body language, and, it was almost like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then at the end of every interview, they always ask you, have you got any questions?
Okay.
Well, I said, yeah. What's voluntary? What's the voluntary package? And he said, you don't need to know. And I said, no, come on. What is it? Is it statutory? Are you giving an enhanced package? And he said, you don't need to know. And I said, this is my strong sense of justice getting me in trouble. I said, well, we both know that if you're not even willing to consider a voluntary package, that means you're cherry picking people, and that would be unfair redundancy. So you might as well just tell me what the voluntary package is. And in that instant, I was like, I fell from grace. His whole face, behavior changed, and he went, how much do you want? And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. Even if I had changed my mind, there was no going back. So I named a figure, forgot all of my training, named a figure which was nowhere near adequate. And he said, you need to be gone within 10 days. And I was like, oh, okay. Fine. Don't tell anyone, don't tell your clients. I had cases, don't tell your colleagues. You can drop the company car, drop the car back. We'll get you a train ticket to come back from Manchester. You need to be gone within 10 days. And that's what happened. And so by that time, I thought, well, this job security thing's a bit of a myth. I might as well give it a go. It was never really meant to be forever. I said, I'll try it for a year. I didn't have a year's money, so I don't know why I said 12 months. I thought I'll try it for 12 months and see what happens. And yeah, well, the rest is history. I'm still here.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. I think in terms of the final push to find out the package, had you mentally prepared yourself that you hadn't?
No, I was
Wow.
simply, like lots of people say, oh, you're so brave. And I said, I was just looking. I've lost my footing. I was looking over the edge of the cliff. I had not
Mm.
prepared myself. I hadn't really thought about going into business at that stage. I thought I'd take the voluntary and I would maybe get another job. Perhaps. I hadn't, I just thought I'd ask. I just thought I'd
Wow.
ask. But I
Yeah.
knew I've been quite a good reader of people from quite early on, and I knew there was no going. I knew in that instant there was
Yeah,
no going back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I suppose it was time. It was
Yeah,
time for you to do it,
yeah,
definitely. It was time. So now you started in business, you
yeah.
had no commercial experience, but I think the one of the things you said before was that you know how to build relationships. So
Mm,
how did this play into you setting up in business? And if you just bring us to how you set up the challenge,
mm,
a few challenges, because I can imagine how many there will be,
yeah.
and where you're at now.
Well, the first challenge was that 6 months prior to having this conversation about redundancy, my husband and I had agreed he would go into self-employment. And so that coincided, actually set up his business on the first day I set up mine, you know. So
Wow.
the first challenge really was how you survive on very limited funds. He didn't really have savings other than what I'd requested, which was not
Mm,
adequate. So that was the first challenge. And then the second one was how do I meet people? So okay, fine, I'm good at building relationships, but I'd never networked. I didn't know what networking was. I didn't know what a chamber of commerce was. Literally very, very green. And my neighbor had built me a website. That wasn't what he did, but he could dabble. He built me a website. I knew I needed a phone. I got 30 business cards. That's what I could afford, just 30 here, 30 business cards. And honestly, I thought the phone was broken. I thought that's why it's not working. The phone's broken.
oh,
And I
goodness.
was talking to my neighbor, and I was like, oh, like it's been a couple of months, and I'm getting quite worried. And she said, why don't you try one of these business breakfasts? And I said, oh, okay. I didn't know what that was. I probably should have asked, but I didn't. I said,
Mm,
okay. And just went back home and Googled business breakfast. And what came up was the chamber were having, the Chamber of Commerce were having an event. They'd have at Ashford International where they would have, people exhibiting. And I thought that was a chance for me to sell my business. I must have been very irritating because I know when I have a stand, I'm selling to the people on the stand, the people that have paid for the stand. So I went along there, with my 30 business cards. It felt good. It was a good feeling that moment.
yeah.
And in the process, they had this women in business speed networking. And I just thought, give it a go. And I sat down and I spoke to two ladies, Lisa Settle and Grace Kelly. And I don't know, they just took me under their wing. I was very, very shy. And they invited
Mm,
me to a meeting in Rochester, a women in business meeting. And I went along to that. And at the time, it was a small group, maybe not even 10 people. But I thought, this is amazing, getting some help. I treated it like studying, I was like, this is amazing,
mm-hmm.
listening to people. And it was only like £10. I thought, I can afford that. I can afford £10 a meeting, once a month. Um, and then Grace had said to me at the end of the meeting, do you like Indian food? I'm a big foodie. I said, yeah. She says, come out for an Indian tomorrow at this time. So I thought I had a client, actually. I went home,
Yeah.
said to my husband, I think I've really made an impression. I've got this client. Put on some nice shoes, went for the Indian, and turned out I wasn't that special. There were 30 other people. This was networking. So,
Wow.
I sat next to some people. Said, well, what are you doing? This is what we do. We eat and we get to know each other. And I just asked lots of questions, and then I started going to as many free or cheaper networking events that I could go to. I would take a notebook. I've still got all my notebooks, and anything the 10-minute speakers would say about social media or bookkeeping or anything, I would just write it down. I thought, what a cheap, great way to learn. So
Yeah.
it came as a surprise to me that some months in, someone then asked to speak to me. I thought I was in trouble, and said, can you represent me? And I was like, wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah, so yeah, continue to do more of that, really.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing. Because I remember meeting you. This probably was about, in fact, I remember hearing about you before I met you. And this was probably about 7 years ago.
Mm,
And I was told, have you met Gemma? Do you know Gemma? When I was going for networking meetings. And I'm going, no. So when I met you, I
mm,
went, oh, okay, this is Gemma. And I
mm,
think one of the things that I noticed you did really well then was networking. It
mm,
was, and I love the fact that you know you were going there to learn, to meet, but also to learn. And I think that's so powerful. I think what's really come out a lot in what you're describing is your hunger for knowledge.
mm.
And that is so powerful because once you're open to learning, it becomes easy to pick up things as you go along. That's really amazing. So now you're a team of how many?
6, yeah.
Six. That's
6.
incredible. That is really incredible. No, honestly, well done. So, who do you work with typically?
So small and medium businesses are the smaller businesses, the micro business, they'll come to us for ad hoc advice. But we also work with charities and other organizations that have got 300 to 400 employees, just because people sometimes bring problems. So, we support them on their day-to-day advice, their documents, but also tribunal representation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in terms of representing, do you just represent organizations or do you represent individuals as well?
Just organizations. Yeah.
Okay, organizations. Okay, that's cool. And then I know you also do quite a bit yourself in terms of public speaking. So what do you typically speak on and where do you go? Just so that if there's anyone listening
Yeah.
that wants, yeah.
So a few things really. One is my journey, because as we've discovered today, everybody's journey is different, and sometimes you
Yeah.
can learn things from that. So I don't go and tell people you should do and you shouldn't do. I just share my experience and hope that somebody might learn something from that. I talk about being a woman in business because I'm a woman in business, and some of the things that I experienced and have overcome or have embraced and enjoyed. Entrepreneurship, and of course anything that is around employment law or people, because that is what I do. So one of my popular talks is, I call it the 3 C's of employment law, which is conduct, contract, and current updates.
Wow. Thanks so much, Gemma. So Gemma, for people who are listening that want to contact you or need you, can you just give us an example of what the process is like and where they can, how they can reach out to you? I'll put all your details in the
Mm.
description as well.
So I do quite a bit on LinkedIn. So if you find me, Jemma Haynes, Jemma with a J, on LinkedIn, you can find me there, connect with me, and send me a message there. Alternatively, you can email my business at info@orchardemploymentlaw.co.uk.
Thank you, Orchard Employment Law. Thank you so much, Gemma. So I think I've got one more question that I want to kind of push a bit. Because you've described a lot about your journey, I think, which is incredible in terms of you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth. You really grew up you came from a challenging background, but you've made it to where you are today. And how have you passed this on to your daughter just quickly? And I really want to bring this
Yeah.
up because I think women, parents need to realize the impact that they can have on children. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So I think you touched on it briefly, mentioned that my daughter has her business, she crochets, and she's very much been a part of my business from the age of 5, really. Partly because I didn't have childcare, so she would come everywhere with me, even networking, I would bring her with me. And I've always explained what I do. So, why are you doing this? I'm doing this because of this. And do you want to be a part of it? If she wants to, I give her a small pocket money, but if she wants to earn extra money, she has to come in and do the shredding or the designing of YouTube thumbnails. And I imagine that just being in that environment has helped her to do her own business. And very fortunate in that I now have a number of business friends. So she's not just learning from me, she's learning from you and
Yeah.
everybody else she sees. And she's asked them, would ask them questions. So yeah, we're in a good position in that sense. Yeah,
Yeah. How old is she?
she'll be 14 next month. Yeah,
That's
in a few weeks.
amazing. That's amazing. I think just that mindset, knowing that she can, is incredible because I see, I always say that the adults that, you see in the organizations today, it's what the brain that they are wired with as children that they bring into the workplace. So you see a lot of people who are risk averse, people who struggle with change, a lot of issues. But if you can really give this to kids at a young age, it makes such a difference. Thanks so much, Gemma. So I'm going to wrap this up and just say one of the things you did say to me, I think when we were chatting about this podcast originally, was life does not have to be perfect. And if you just use that to wrap up and give us some word of wisdom in terms of what you meant by this and just bringing up everything you've talked about to this would be great.
Yeah, I think I've had challenges all the way through my life, from a young child, a young adult, an employee, and even as a businesswoman. But if you lean into the things that you can lean into, or even use those challenges to propel you, I think it's even more powerful than not having those challenges. Sometimes people say to me, if you could do the business again, but start with, I don't know, X amount of thousands of pounds, how do you think you'd do? And I'm like, I really feel like not having made me go out there, put myself in those uncomfortable positions of having to speak to people. Yeah, I really think that the not having and some of the not so nice experiences actually propelled me to do better. So yeah, don't think that you have to come from a family or have lots of funds in order to succeed.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I think it's so powerful to realize that you can start from anywhere and any situation and achieve what you want. And the fact that what you've described for us today, every year to be told that there's redundancy and having had a bad experience before, it's almost like your brain is in constant fear, but you chose not to be that way. You chose to, yes, it comes, but then you could do something about it. What are you doing? Making the most of this situation. And that bit that you really push to find out the redundancy package, I think is just
I know.
incredible. That's interesting. But again, you embraced it. It happened and you went for it. And yeah, no, you've really shared your whole self with us today. And I really appreciate that, Gemma. Thank you so, so, so much for coming on to Lead to Excel podcast. Listeners, I'm going to put Gemma's descriptions down. So if you want her to come and speak at your event, or if you want her in terms of employment law, please do reach out. Gemma is amazing. She really, truly is. Thank you once again, Gemma.
Thank you.